Welcome to the Charlotte Future City Building game. In this fun and easy game, 2 to 4 players each build their vision for the future of Charlotte. Players choose their objectives, what to build, and where to build it. The player with the best city wins the game. This game is a part of the Charlotte Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan public involvement process. By playing this game, you will better understand our community's 2040 goals and how we plan to accomplish them. This game is available both as a physical game as well as a digital game. In this case, we'll be using the digital game to go over how to play. Let's start by looking at the different play areas. The central play area is where players will take and discard cards. The other boards are where each player will build their own city as well as set their own framework policies. Let's look at each player's board. In the center of your board is a 4x4 grid where you will be building your city. At the top is a 10-space section for where you will place your framework policies. Framework policies act as your objectives in the game and are the primary way you score points. On the right side of the board is a player aid that serves as a reference during the game. The goal of the game is to earn the most points by building the best vision of Charlotte for 2040. The game is played over the course of 11 rounds. On your turn, you will take 2 cards and discard a number of cards from the central play area. The number of cards you discard is based on how many people are playing. Let's look at the player aid card. In this case, we see in a 3-player game, we will take 2 cards and then discard 2 cards. Let's go over to the central play area. This row contains 3 stacks of framework policy cards. These cards represent the wants and needs of Charlotteans. They are the primary way you score points and act as your objectives during the game. You get to choose which framework policies to work towards fulfilling. There are 10 framework policies in the game, just as there are in the Charlotte Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan. In order to fulfill a framework policy, you must have 3 corresponding cards in your city. These requirements are listed in 3 rows in the center of the card. Some requirements can be fulfilled with a choice of 2 different cards. For each framework policy card you take, you will score either 0, 5, or 10 points. The amount you score depends on how you have built your city. For example, let's look at affordable and workforce housing. If we wanted to pick up this card, we would get either 0, 5, or 10 points at the end of this game, depending on whether we could fulfill this framework policy. In order to fulfill a framework policy, you have to have 1 card from each of the 3 rows. So in this case, we would have to have either a neighborhood 1 or a neighborhood 2 card in our city, plus transit, plus affordable housing. If we have all 3 of these cards within our city, we will get 5 points. But if all of those cards are adjacent to one another, meaning they are connected side by side, we will get 10 points. If by the end of the game we don't have all 3 required cards in our city, we score 0 points for this framework policy card. Keep in mind that you can only select one of each of the 10 different kinds of framework policy cards. Let's go back to the central play area. The bottom 2 rows contain place types and projects and programs you can build in your city to fulfill framework policy cards. For example, if I wanted to build open space in my city, I would take this place type card. If I wanted to build pedestrian and bicycle improvements in my city, I would take this projects and programs card. After looking at my options, I decide that I want to set a framework policy of affordable and workforce housing. I will select the affordable and workforce housing card and place it above my city in one of the 10 framework policy slots. So now that I have taken 1 card and placed it, I still need to take another one. Let's look at my framework policy again. In this case, I know I need either neighborhood 1 or neighborhood 2, as well as transit, as well as affordable housing. Let's see if any of those cards are available in the bottom 2 rows. Both neighborhood 2 and affordable housing are available. But as we said before, we can only take up to 2 cards per turn, so we have to decide which one of these cards to select. Let's take this neighborhood 2 card. The first card you place in your city can be placed anywhere. After that, any additional cards you add to your city must be placed adjacent to the pre-existing cards. We'll go over that in more detail soon. Now that we've taken and placed 2 cards, let's look at the player aid card for a reminder of how many cards we need to discard each turn. In a 3-player game, we're going to discard 2 cards. The cards we discard must come from the bottom 2 rows. Let's discard a pedestrian and bicycle improvements card, as well as a community activity center. At the end of our turn, we have to refill any empty spaces in the bottom 2 rows of the central play area by drawing cards from the corresponding draw piles in each column. Flip the cards over from the framework policy side to the other side as they enter the bottom 2 rows. When filling an empty space, make sure to always draw cards from the framework policy draw pile in the same column. After you are done, play then proceeds to the next player in clockwise order. As soon as all players have finished their first turn, it's time for the next round. Move the round marker down 1 space in the central play area. You again now have to take and place 2 cards, and then discard cards. Remember, the 2 cards you select can be any combination of framework policies, place types, and projects and programs. Let's look back at our framework policy. We already have Neighborhood 2, but still need transit and affordable housing in order to score for this framework policy. Let's see if any of those are in the central play area. Both of those cards are in the central play area, so this is a great opportunity to score some points. Let's start with transit. As we take transit into our city, we must ensure that it touches the pre-existing cards that we have side by side, horizontally or vertically. So we can place transit here, 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 or here. We cannot connect cards solely on the corners. So we could not do this, 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 or this. And since the cards have to be adjacent, we couldn't put it in these spots either. Let's place transit here. Next, let's select affordable housing. Just like before, this card must connect to pre-existing cards side by side. So it could go into these spots and not into these spots. Let's place it here. All 3 of these cards are now connected and adjacent to one another. Not only have we completed the Affordable and Workforce Housing Framework Policy, but since they are all adjacent, we get 10 points. In this way, players are rewarded for coordinating how they build and grow their city. In this example, all 3 of the required cards to fulfill the Affordable and Workforce Housing Framework Policy are within our city, but they are not adjacent. Notice that Neighborhood 2 and Transit are connected to one another side by side, but neither card is connected to affordable housing. In this case, we would score 5 points. All scoring is done at the end of the game after 11 rounds. Finally, let's look at bonus point cards. Players can earn additional points through the 3 bonus point cards that are present in each game. These cards will be randomized each time you play. Bonus points are awarded to players who build certain place types and projects and programs in their city. There are 8 different kinds of projects and programs, as well as 10 different kinds of place types divided into 3 categories: live, work, and play. Each category has its own symbol, which you can find in the top left corner of the card. Let's look at this bonus point card. This bonus point card applies to work place types. It says all players earn 3 points for each of the 4 kinds of work place types in their city. The symbol in the center represents the work place types. The 4 colors in the background refer to the 4 place types that have this background color. We can see, for example, that campus, general industrial, and commercial all have the work place type symbol. The background colors of these cards are also represented in the background of the bonus point card. Make sure to carefully read each bonus point card. At the end of the game, players calculate their scores by totaling the points they earn from framework policies as well as bonus point cards. The player with the most points wins. In the event of a tie, the players share in victory. Please see the rulebook for additional information, including setup instructions, and a reference to all the framework policies on the back page. Thanks for playing the Charlotte Future City Building game.